Welcome to Shrimperscast with me, Steve Mansfield.
And me, Will Nichols. On today's show,
4 points from 6 as Blues hunt down an unlikely playoff place.
It's Southend undefeated in 7 with a 3-0 win against Ebbsfleet at home and a hard-fought point in Hertfordshire against Boreham Wood.
We've got 2 guest interviews as Bernie reminisces with former Blues and Arsenal winger Adrian Clarke.
And I catch up with the Boxer Rebellion drummer and lifelong Shrimpers diehard, Piers Hewitt.
Hello. Welcome to all of our listeners to another episode of Shrimperscast. A bit of a strange episode, actually, as well. We're recording this on Halloween, and it's got really spooky in Shrimpers Towers because, well, I'm sat here with, well, not with Paul, not with Bernie. They've both been abducted by zombies or ghosts or something spooky. I'm sat here with a guy that is often a bit of a apparition in the Shrimperscast world. You'd have heard us mention his name because he's been involved behind the scenes, but he's appeared to me now as a vision on this Halloween day, and it's my friend Mr. Will Nichols. Will, welcome to Shrimperscast.
Thank you so much for that very long-winded but beautiful intro. Mm-hmm. I do feel like a ghost in the midst, so it's nice to be involved. And nice to be here.
Not at all. Thanks for coming and joining me. The reason Will's getting involved today is because availability.
Couldn't get anyone else.
He's come off the bench, emergency substitution, and he's going to put in a shift for us today. A second reason why this is a bit odd is because neither of us are Southend fans. So you'll have heard me mention before I'm a Derby County fan. And Will, who do you support?
I'm actually a Nottingham Forest fan.
What?
So the fact we're even in the room together is quite outstanding.
Yeah, it is. How did Forest do at the weekend?
Less said about that, the better. How did Derby get on?
Yeah, similar. 3-1 defeat to Stevenage. That's the level that we're at now.
Yeah, with
depressing
3-0 against Liverpool, and we were pathetic. But you know, we've only lost to big teams this season. I'm sure you've lost to some far worse teams than we have. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So we're not going to turn this into an East Midlands football podcast. We are going to focus on Southend. And Will, you broke your cherry, didn't you, recently? You're kind of quite new to the area, and you managed to get down to Roots Hall for the first time, like a week or so ago against Ebbsfleet. Is that right?
Indeed, I did. My first game at Roots Hall. It was a beautiful summer's evening. It wasn't autumn evening.
Yeah.
At Roots Hall, and I went with a neighbour, and we went down to the ground. Had a great time. East Stand. I had a beer beforehand in the East Stand bar underneath, which was a great little spot. I couldn't believe it. Saw some Shrimperscast beer mats, which I was very pleased with. Quite a funny thing happened where I was ordering a beer, Foster's, it's all they have. Other beers are available at the bar, and the barmaid who served me, I didn't catch her name, but bless her, she was shaking as she handed my beer over, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And she was like, "I've just met Matt Linen," and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, Matt Linen," and she was like, "Do you know him?" And I was like, I've met him a couple of times," and she was like, "Oh my god, how?" And I was like, "We'll just down at the pub," and she was so excited about seeing Matt Linen.
But Linen off X Factor.
Matt Linen, who came 5th or something on an X Factor of past. He's a lovely guy and an incredibly good-looking guy as well. So I can understand her shaking, but it was a really funny and sweet moment that she enjoyed it. I thought she was so overwhelmed at meeting me, but sadly not.
Maybe she will when she learns that you're part of Shrimperscast, and you know the beer mats are in her bar as well. That will probably knock her for 6.
Absolutely. I should have said something, but I didn't want to shake her up too much more.
So first game, you're not seeing Southend play a great deal before. So you know what did you think of the performance?
Yeah, I mean, a few things to note. I thought it was tricky because Southend went 1-0 up and looked great up until that point. And then they sort of looked a little bit lacklustre. And, you know, to be honest with you, that's completely understandable given the squad size, given the relentless schedule in that league. But whatever Kevin Mayer said at half-time really worked because they came out second half all guns blazing and finished off the match quite quickly into the second half and then got the third. All really great goals, really solid performance. I thought Coker was fantastic. I know he's a young lad, and I thought he played brilliantly. I know he got a goal and an assist, so but a brilliant performance if it was FPL.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really impressed, and also Ebbsfleet, shout out to them because they took a pretty solid, I think, a 240 odd away support, and they made quite a lot of noise. Good bit of Essex-Kent rivalry, which is always fun. I'm an Essex boy, so I'll always defend Essex over Kent, that's for sure. But I loved it. I thought it was a great day out. I'd have to say there was a little bit, the ground feels tired. You can tell it's been badly managed, run from the top badly for a number of years. Basic things like signage and just it being pretty run down. It just felt like, this is a club in need of a boost, and that it's getting that, which is fantastic. And trust me, I've been to some terrible grounds in the time, and it's not a terrible ground. It just feels like it needs a bit of love, and it's going to get that, which is really exciting. Bit
of love, bit of investment, lick of paint, just a general refurb. And we know Justin has spoken to people about knowing that sort of level of investment that's needed from the consortium as they come in. We have got a bit of info later on in the episode about the consortium, so stay tuned in to hear that. Our normal match report for the away game from Boreham Wood is going to be slightly different this week because we've got, and actually this whole episode's quite different. There's a bit of a break now, no game coming up this weekend, so we thought we'd try something slightly different. We're going to have 2 interviews with guests, one of which will be with Bernie and Adrian Clarke, who is former Blues winger and played for Arsenal as well, and just a really lovely chap. He works in the media now. He's all over the podcast world and covering the Premier League and stuff. So really great guy. And you also caught up with Piers Hewitt, who's a drummer in a band, but also a Southend fan. And Piers is going to almost act as our fan in the stand this week for the Boreham Wood game, because he went to that, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. So Piers drums for a band called the Boxer Rebellion, who have been around for a couple of decades now. They've had some great success across the world, been in huge TV shows, in a film with Drew Barrymore. They're an amazing band. Do check them out on Spotify, and they've got new music out now. So he was in just promoting the music, but also talking about his first love, which is Southend, and he honestly speaks so passionately and eloquently about the love that he has for the Blues, and I think it's a really great interview. So I hope you enjoy it, and it was a pleasure for that to be my first interview for the Shrimperscast.
Yeah, cheers for doing that, Will. And that's going to be coming up later on in the episode. But first, let's catch up with Bernie, who sat down last week with Adrian Clarke to talk about his time at Southend and his thoughts on where the club is at the moment. Let's have a listen.
Hi, Clarky. How are you, mate?
Very good. Yeah, good to see you, Bernie.
Good to see you, mate. Thanks for coming on to Shrimperscast to speak to us today. I thought, let's start at the start. We'll have a little trip down memory lane with you. You joined Blues in March '97 when we were still in the second tier. Ronnie Whelan brought you in on loan from Arsenal.
Yeah,
I was very pleased to see you turn up because finally someone else at Roots who had a decent barnet apart from myself. Because in those days you had some lovely long locks, didn't you?
I did. But, unlike you, I kind of grew out of it. I thought, well, while I'm young, I can get away with it. But you're still plodding on, Bernie.
Mate, it's still there. Still, the thing is, you've got to be man enough to handle it. You've got to be man enough to keep it.
Chopped it, mate.
Never, mate, never.
It's trademark, isn't it? It's trademark.
It is trademark. Should get it patented. Anyway, so you came in. It was obviously a difficult time at the club. They were struggling in the Championship. 7 games you played. I think we only won one. It was a 2-1 win over Portsmouth. I think it was your home debut.
Yeah.
What do you remember about signing for Ronnie, coming to Southend?
A few things, yeah. Of course, some of my memories are a little bit sketchy, but I do remember a couple of things about when I joined. First of all, the way that I joined, I was about to play a match for Arsenal reserves in Swansea, and I was warming up, and then I got called in for the warm up by the manager who said, "Oh, look, Southend want to take you on loan."
Who was the manager at the time?
George Armstrong, who is famous Geordie Armstrong, the late great, and So I went on the coach because there weren't really mobile phones then. And so went on the coach bus, the phone on the coach, and he said, "Oh, it's Ronnie Whelan here, blah blah blah. I'd love to bring you in on loan. We're struggling. We might well go down, but it'd be great to get you on board, blah blah blah."
So really got the enthusiasm going there.
Wait for this one. I mean, you might have heard me say this before, but he goes, one of his first questions was, "Do you like a drink?" I said, "Well, I thought it was a trick question." I was like, "Well, on a Saturday night, yeah, if have a couple, nothing crazy." He goes, "We got a cracking set of drinkers at the club. You'll love it." Blah blah blah. I mean, it was some sales pitch, for a young player that had sort of been brought up at Arsenal. This was quite different. And then when I got there, obviously it was, he's great banter. Great, he was a real good guy, and the dressing room was really funny, and loads of talent in there, but it weren't a great team. Not at that level.
There was a lot of talented individuals there. I mean, you look at you obviously Ronnie Whelan as the manager, one of the most decorated players of all time at Liverpool. You had people like Paul Byrne, Mike Marsh, Jerome Bora, Royce. Some really, really good players there on an individual basis who had obviously played at a good level or would go on to play a good level. I mean, why do you think that it didn't happen? Was it because of that drinking culture? Was it a bit too party?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I think everyone was there to have a good time. Maybe not enough focus on the business of winning matches. Not to say it was unprofessional. Training was always good. It wasn't when we played football. Everyone tried their hardest, but maybe there wasn't that focus. There wasn't a great deal of analysis, for example. Not a great deal of preparation. A great example was in my debut at Tranmere, and we went up there. And it's on a Friday night. And the bell rang for the game, and
I thought he was going to say the final orders bell then.
The bell rang for the game, and I was like, we haven't even talked about set pieces or anything. So I said, Ronnie, who's on corners and free kicks? He goes, you haven't.
I know there's a reason I brought you here, Clarky.
I said, well, what do you normally do? Do you near post, far post, in swingers? Just swing it in there. It'll be fine. So, yeah, I got an inkling right away that maybe it wasn't the most organised, the most sort of diligent, I guess, in terms of prep. But, Ronnie was a great football mind and knows the game inside out and had a great relationship with the players. It's just the little things, the little details. Maybe he wasn't so hot on.
I mean, did he do much on the training pitch? Was he out there with you boys?
Playing, yeah, mainly playing. But Peter Trevivian was a good coach. He was with him, and he was a really good trainer, and he put on some interesting sessions. But Ronnie was still outstanding. He's chucking in nutmegs all over the place.
I bet he was doing nutmegs. Did someone say to him? I think did they have the old tyre set up in one of the goals hanging down? He used to just kick a few free kicks through the centre of it.
I can't remember it, but that sounds about right. Yeah, he was still quality. He could easily have played. Mike Marsh was a brilliant player.
Yeah,
Paul Byrne was unbelievable when he was hot. When he was on it, he was unstoppable. But it was a bit inconsistent, like we all were really. It was a talented team, but as a collective, maybe not the best. And it was defensively, I think we always leaked a lot of goals, and we needed 2 or 3 to get anything out of most games, which obviously you're up against it then, aren't you?
But if you wanted to win a drinking game, it would have been Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's some great parties. I mean, a few of the lads after training they'd regularly go off and go to the pub and stuff like that. And Marsh and Byrne and Jerome Bora were, they were great value, great characters, but maybe not the most dedicated professionals at that point in their careers.
I mean, I did once hear a rumour that Ronnie was given a tap in the Roots Hall car park on a Saturday morning where him and Bernie and maybe Marsh had ended up sleeping in the car overnight. Did you ever hear that one?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear that. No, I can't confirm that one.
But wouldn't be surprised.
No, it was. The culture was a little bit wild, I suppose. It was just after and coach trips on the way home as well. There'd be a lot of booze sunk it wasn't as if we were winning that often away from home either. But
we lose on the booze.
Yeah, well, kind of, and that was but that was the way it was back then. It was a different time.
Yeah,
we weren't the only club doing that for sure.
No.
I think that was commonplace.
Yeah,
but I remember a few of the lads rolling off the coach, on the back of long coach journeys. But you wouldn't see it these days. But that wasn't that abnormal back then.
Okay, so that was the 96-97 season. We ended up getting relegated from the second tier after 6 years of being at that level. You went back to the marble halls of Highbury. I believe, would Mr. Wenger have been your manager at the time then?
At the time, yeah, he was.
And what would, obviously, like you've just said, Wenger is often lauded for changing the culture in English football, getting away from maybe the Southend culture of bacon sarnies and pints of Guinness.
Yeah,
and Arsenal had a big drinking club, didn't they? Before Mr. Wenger arrived, and so obviously at Arsenal with Mr. Wenger, it was more of a pasta and vitamin drinks background.
Yeah.
But who was it? Was it George Graham that gave you your debut before this?
Yeah, so look, it was a long old process.
Arsenal debut?
Yeah, I played in 94, 95 once for George Graham against QPR. Then the next season, then I went on the tour, post-season tour of China and Hong Kong. And then the next season, I was in the squad for pretty much the whole season, 95, 96. And it was fantastic. This was pre-Southend, and yeah, it was fantastic. Loved it. I think nine first team appearances, and it was all good.
With Bruce Rioch, Clarke?
That was Bruce Rioch.
So you must have gotten well with Bruce, another Scotsman after George.
I got on all right with him, yeah. Like George Graham, it was always a bit aloof. Never quite sure he knew even my name. He was one of those, you'd been there, 10 years, but you were never quite sure where you stood with him. But Bruce was, he liked me. He took a bit of a shine to me, I guess, and then gave me lots of game time, and it was brilliant. But then. Yeah, the next he left in the summer, and Arsene Wenger trimmed down the squad, and so the training ground had burnt down, the changing room, so it was all split up. So he kind of picked 16 or 18 that first teamers, and they'd get changed at this local hotel, and the rest of us would be at Colney and Portakabins. So I was basically back in the reserves, which is why I ended up going on loan to Southend towards the end of that season. So
you didn't really build up a relationship with Mr. Wenger then?
Not really. No, I trained the first 10 sessions or so. We were all together in a big group, and it was fantastic. And then he kind of split it off. And also, it wasn't them and us really in a way, because all the vitamins that you spoke about, the creatine, the diet, the special diets, etc. They were all for the chosen few, and the rest of us just sort of had to crack on. So it was quite a demoralising time. So I was really buzzing to go to Southend on loan. Like it was.
You knew it was time.
Yeah, I did know it was time. And then at the end of my loan spell, I think I'd done okay individually. The team, like you said, we hadn't won many, but I'd done all right in flashes. And Ronnie wanted to sign me permanently, but Arsenal were asking for a fee at the time. And that was putting Southend off, obviously. They never really had that much money, and other teams as well. And then he basically just said, look, you're end of your contract. We'll waive a fee. I know that Southend want you. I think there's a few other clubs interested. Go out there and play. And that was it. It was a 10-minute conversation at the end of, I'd been there 12 years. So, it was quite heartbreaking, really. But it was the right thing for my career. But yeah, Wigan offered me a contract. Cambridge were sort of badgering, and Ipswich asked me to go on trial, really. Because I was an Ipswich fan as a kid, and George Burley got in touch and said, come up and see us. And I was quite excited. And then he said, look, my chief scout loves you. One of my other scouts, not so sure. And I haven't seen enough of you, so I can't offer you a contract right now, but why don't you come and train with us for a week or two, and we'll take it from there. But Southend had offered me a contract, and it was getting towards the season, and I took it basically. And I took it when we had no manager, which is probably the daftest thing you could ever do. But
it's all a learning curve, Clarke.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a little bit of a panic. No, but because I was thinking, well, what if it doesn't work out at Ipswich? Where's that leave me? The season would have started.
You wanted the contract. You wanted that stability. You wanted that stability, didn't you?
Exactly. And I didn't really fancy Wigan. And Southend I knew, and I knew the lads. And they'd offered me a contract before Ronnie quit. they got in touch to say, look, nothing's changed. We still want you, but obviously we haven't appointed anyone. So I just did it anyway. I just took a chance, and then obviously they recruited Alvin Martin just a few days later.
Southend are in the third tier now. When you've signed permanently, Alvin has been installed as boss. Obviously, after you signed, you've swapped Tony Adams, David Platt, and Dennis Burkamp for Keith Dublin, Phil Gridlett, and Andy Rammell. You've swapped Highbury for Roots Hall, and that iconic JVC Arsenal shirt for the most horrendous football kit ever designed, the custard splat. Good choice, Clarkey.
Loved it.
But to be fair, and again, it was another really hard season, obviously, which had ended in a second successive relegation. But for yourself, it was quite a good season for you. You did quite well, didn't you? I mean, you got 5 goals, I think, when I was looking. We never actually lost a game when you scored. Some good games. We beat Brentford 3-1 when you scored. We beat Bournemouth 5-3 when you scored. But the game that really always sticks out for me, I think it was a Friday night from memory, was that 4-4 against York City.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? What do you remember that under the floodlights? A great game.
It. Yeah, not many people were there. I think it was a small crowd, but
you got 2 and Dubbers got 2.
Yeah, it was a great game. Stuck one. Jerome Boer played me in down the left. I sort of cut inside, dribbled past a couple, bent one in the corner, top corner, and then there was another goal where I ran through and then curled it in the other corner, and then I set up, I think, 2 set piece deliveries for Keith Dublin to score.
They were your corners, right? Were they your corners?
Yeah, they were my corners.
I thought they were, yeah.
Yeah, so 2 goals, 2 assists, and then the one that really stands out is my first goal against Brentford. I've seen it because there is on YouTube a compilation of all the goals from all the matches in 97, 98. So if anyone listening hasn't seen that, just search it. It exists. And I watched it one day and it just brought me right back. And the Brentford goal, I mean, it's one of the best goals I've ever scored, full stop, to be honest. It was.
Talk us through it.
Well, I think it was was it Phil Gridley or Mike Marsh? One of the two slipped me into the box, and then I sort of dropped a shoulder and chopped the ball back one touch, but the defender went sliding past me, so it made me look better. So I've sort of done him, and then I just bent it into the far top corner. It was a real peach, and then that was my first ever league goal, and I just loved it. And in that season, I think I played over 50 games in all competitions. I was a regular.
Big step up from playing reserves and the odd few games at Arsenal. It's a big difference, isn't it?
I absolutely loved it. And it was really frustrating, actually, because I think if I'd have had the same performances, if I'd have played for a more successful team, I'd have probably got 12 goals. But because, it's a different scenario when you're operating near the bottom. But on a performance level note, I think it would have gone down as a really strong season for me had we finished, up the table. But because you're in a team that's really struggled, it kind of gets washed away and forgotten a little bit. The bottom line, Bernie, is I should have left because I knew that teams wanted me off the back of that season.
Where could you have gone?
Well, there was a guy, I ended up going on loan to Carlisle, and the guy that worked for Bristol City, and he said that we were watching you closely and we were very close to sort of coming in for you. And there's a bit of interest, but I should have probably just said to the club, that I'm out. I want to move on, but I didn't. And then you get off to an indifferent start the next season, and things can spiral out of control, and that's what happened. So that's quite a big regret, really, that I didn't sort of asked to leave, but it wasn't really my nature. Because
you're a nice guy, aren't you? Let's be honest. Some footballers can be quite cutthroat, quite mercenary, but like you just said about Arsenal, you weren't on the booze, you weren't out chasing women. You were quite a settled, grounded guy, and a nice. I'm not saying that.
You were probably
you were a really nice guy, a nice guy.
Too much though, but too much so. In general, really, when I look back at my career, Arsenal always used to say it. Demand the ball, but a bit nastier, be a bit more selfish. Because I was a very instinctive player. Like, it was all about sort of taking players on, putting crosses in. You were like an old-fashioned winger, weren't you? Yeah. So it was about getting the ball, trying to take someone on, whip it across the face of goal or have a shot or whatnot. But as a winger, you are reliant a little bit on service. And obviously the service I was getting at Arsenal was a bit better than I'm getting at
a little bit,
and you're getting it up around your neck a bit. And obviously the style of football is different as well. Probably didn't suit me massively, but I should have been more selfish. I should have been more focused on myself, really. And in general, I think I probably should have had a better career. I should have worked. I should have done a bit extra at Arsenal. I should have maybe analysed my own performances a little bit more detail. I should have been maybe tougher on myself after a poor performance. I like to sweep it under the carpet and just move on. Maybe I should have looked harder at where I could improve. I didn't really self-analyse that much, which is ironic, really, when considered what I've been doing for donkey's years now in journalism is football analysis. But I didn't really think about football that much when I wasn't at the training.
You have to use that old word hindsight again, which comes up a hell of a lot when you do these conversations.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely should have done better. I think for Arsenal and for Southend, I should have scored more goals. No doubt about that. I should have taken more matches by the scruff of the neck because I do think I was capable, but I was probably I was too timid. I was a bit, not one of the louder characters, and sometimes you can get sort of squashed down a little bit, can't you?
I'm getting a nickname now because I feel like I've just had a confession from the Rev. I feel like you've let it all out. Let it go, son.
It's all good. Let it go. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, I do wish I'd done a little bit better.
On a final note, with both your heads on, you're journalist journalist, fan, and ex-player. Just a message to the Southend fans about what's going on at the moment and how you see it going in the future?
Yeah, I don't know, just well done on sticking. My message to the fans is well done for sticking with the team and for coming out and supporting the team in such numbers through the darkest of days. It must have been so stressful. I was a bit stressed out from, distance away. I don't know, can't imagine what it was like for you guys listening. But you've got the right man in the technical area now. You've got someone that will do the right thing by the team, by the players, and hopefully we get the right ownership in so that we can have a platform to build and to grow and to get back to where we belong. And where we belong isn't just in the EFL, by the way. Where we belong is at least in the third tier of English football. Southend United should be in League One. And that's the goal, I think, for everyone associated with the club. Get back there. Hopefully the club will modernise and find other ways of making money, and just sort of reinvent itself in the years and decades to come. So yeah, fingers crossed. I believe because Southend is a pretty special place. Like, it's tucked away there at the end of Essex. Everyone really does care about it. There's a real passion there, and I believe that we will get back there.
Well, when you finally get down to watch a game this season, Clarkey, give me a shout, and I'll cash in some of them beer tokens that you say you owe me.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, we did. Maybe need to go full hog.
Yeah, you want to go and I'll take you down the toothbrush.
Get myself a travel lodge, and we'll hit the town, Bernie.
I sound a little bit Alan Partridge, mate. Okay,
that's the least I owe you, mate. So yeah, no, thank you, and thanks for today. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Been nice to sort of have a little reminisce.
Yeah, good to catch up, mate. Take care. Speak to you soon. Cheers, Clarkey. Bye.
Fantastic interview there. Thank you, Bernie and Adrian. The full version of that, we'll put that out on our YouTube in the next week or so, alongside a version out on our podcast platforms as well. We'll let you know on the socials when that drops. Steve, speaking of socials, I know there was quite a lot of correspondence this week, and we love so much hearing from you guys. Please do keep sending stuff in to @Shrimperscast on all the socials. I know you had something in from someone on Twitter regarding the consortium, which I think is really valuable, so we should go into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of weeks ago on the episode where the consortium had just been revealed, there was myself and Bernie kind of chatting through the names that were associated. And one name that we touched on was Jason Brown. And this is the guy that runs a hedge fund out in Hong Kong. And Bernie and I clearly not experts in this field at all, and we admitted as much on the episode. But one of our listeners, a chap by the name of Tony, got in touch via Twitter just to kind of shed a bit more light, really, on his thoughts. Now, he's worked in the finance industry, so he's more sort of au fait with the terms and how these things might work. And essentially, what Tony has said is that having 1 billion under management, as the hedge fund that Jason Brown owns it is very likely to mean that the owner, i.e. Jason and his partners in the hedge fund, are pretty wealthy. There was a little bit of concern because hedge funds, obviously, that they tend to look for, and I think this one in particular is there to look at sort of high risk assets to invest in. And there was a bit of concern that maybe they're looking at Southend as one of those, and it's just a kind of financial instrument really for them to kind of quickly flip and make a quick buck. Tony, the guy who contacted us, the listener, although he doesn't have any more sort of inside information than we do, does think, and he did say to us that he feels that Southend probably is even too risky for a hedge fund. So given that Mr. Jason Brown, who owns this hedge fund and is part of the consortium, is a lifelong Southend fan, Tony's feeling is that it's probably a personal investment and something that he wants to get involved in for the good of the club alongside the consortium to help steady the ship and get it back to where it should be.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I know absolutely nothing about this sort of world, but to be honest with you, that what I do know of hedge funds is a risk, and Southend is a big old risk. So that makes sense for it to be a personal investment. Yeah. So thank you to Martin Lewis for sending that information over.
If Martin Lewis is listening, you can get in touch and explain some stuff for us. That'd be great. No, big thanks to Tony on Twitter. And as Will said, look, if you guys have got any questions, any guests that you'd like us to get on, or any questions for guests that we've got coming up that you think you'd like to hear answered, please get in touch on the socials and let us know.
Thank you very much. Also, I was thinking, so having seen the Shrimperscast beer mat out in the wild, that we should do a little challenge of getting people to send in photos of the Shrimperscast beer mat wherever they are. So if you find one in a pub or take it up a mountain or take it to Hong Kong, then send us a photo and we'll see where the furthest beer mat can get. So yeah, do that on @Shrimperscast.
Nice one. So next up, we have Will's interview with a local guy, a successful musician, drummer in the band The Boxer Rebellion, Mr. Piers Hewitt.
It is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show Piers Hewitt. Piers is a lifelong sufferer of Southend United and drummer for The Boxer Rebellion. The Boxer Rebellion, for those who don't know, are an indie band who have had, in their sort of 20 or so years together, have made 6 critically acclaimed albums and have featured on the likes of FIFA, Being Human, Trigger Happy TV, One True Hill, David Letterman, WWE Raw, which I need to talk about, Grey's Anatomy, as well as starring in Hollywood rom-com Going the Distance with Drew Barrymore, no less. They have just returned with new music after some 5 years away and can count Simon Pegg as one of their fans. And they're also some of the nicest chaps in music. Piers, don't let the band down now. Hello.
Oh, we're awfully nice. Thank you. Well, I feel like one of these people on Question Time who sit there uncomfortably whilst all of their life has been described by Fiona Bruce, and they don't know how to look. But then no one can see me, so it's okay.
It's fine. It's absolutely fine.
It was a lengthy intro, Will. I'm very impressed.
It was quite wordy, wasn't it? I wrote it whilst sipping a red wine and recovering from Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool. And the reason why I am doing this interview with Piers is firstly because I know Piers, but also because I went to Southend United for the first time ever just the other day, Tuesday night, in fact. Went to Roots Hall to lost my Roots Hall virginity, which I was meant to lose a few weeks ago, but I very inconveniently, my wife decided to have our second child the day before a game, so I wasn't able to go. So it's been held back. But so I'm not a Southend United fan. I'm a Nottingham Forest fan, but popped my cherry at the Ebbsfleet game on Tuesday night, 3-0. We'll talk about that a bit later.
Some would say your life has just begun, Will.
With a second child, or
no, just going to Roots Hall for the first time.
Going to Roots Hall, it was a great experience. I absolutely loved it. I was sat in the East Stand, not the Rose West. Where do you sit?
I sit in the South Upper. Yeah,
South Upper.
Just slight off centre. And I've kind of sat everywhere in my time, really. And I just love the view. I always have, like being able to almost spit on them from where I am, from the elevation. The elevation being directly behind the goal. It's I'm not going to advocate spitting at anybody on the pitch, but if I wanted to, I potentially could.
I walked past a really disgusting pile of spit the other day, and I was like, I just don't even understand how someone can produce that much spit. Anyway, lovely chat for a podcast. But let's talk a bit about your history with the club. So talk us through how you became a Southend fan. I know for a fact that it's through your dad, but what was the kind of your first memory and those early days of supporting Southend? Talk us through that.
I have a brother who's about 4.5 years older than me, and my dad started going kind of in his late 20s and started taking my brother before me, obviously, and I remember resenting this time they had together and almost causing a bit of a scene and pretending I wasn't interested, and I had no idea what they were talking about when they were talking about home and away, and it seemed really stupid. But I don't remember asking to go. I guess I must have done at some stage because, like kids they hate missing out on something. But I do remember going vividly for the first time, and I was 8.5. And we played Huddersfield at home. It was March 1989. You already had David Crown on as a guest. He scored 2 goals that afternoon.
Nice.
But we did lose 4-2.
Oh.
And my second game was the final game of that season, which was also discussed in the interview with David Crown, I believe. And we won, but we got relegated.
Oh.
So I really, the standard was set very early on. But I don't, in terms of my early football memories, they were, I remember Roots Hall feeling really big, because it was, to me at that time. I was pretty small. And we used to stand in the, like you call it, the Rose West stand. So I had a couple of years, 2 or 3 seasons there where it was all terracing. So me and my brother used to stand right at the front, directly on the halfway line. And my dad didn't. He stood on his own about 2/3 of the way back by a pillar, which it seems kind of nuts to me now, but he didn't. He didn't want to. He said it was all legs and grass.
Right.
So he wanted his own viewpoint. Maybe he just wanted an hour and a half to himself. But I don't remember being particularly annoyed about that. But yeah, we didn't watch. I didn't watch my first few games with my dad. But once it was all-seater, he had no choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it became all-seater when I was 11 because we'd won back-to-back promotions straight after that relegation. We got promoted and then promoted again, and that was the first time we ended up in the second tier. And then the Taylor report was beginning to come into effect, and so we bolted on seats wherever there was terracing, and the beginning of that was the West Stand becoming all-seater. And yeah, so we were quite, considering all the grounds that we now play at and have done over the last few years of being lower league, where quite often you get the opportunity to stand on a terrace. We haven't had that at Roots Hall since 1994. So we were
hopefully coming back at some point with a safe standing initiative. It seems to be implemented elsewhere.
That would be good. It's very expensive to implement. I know that. So certainly our previous and outgoing owner would not have been up for spending money on such a venture.
Such a frivolous venture.
Try not to mention him anymore. But it is an expensive thing. But yeah, I like going away from home and being able to stand on a terrace every now and again. I don't know if I want to do it every week. Quite like sitting down.
Yeah,
I'm used to it.
Although those the East Stand seating was particularly uncomfortable, I found on my bony bum. But when is it comfortable? I don't think I can't even recall a football stadium where I have been comfortable. It's not made for comfort. There's no football stadium I've been to that's made for comfort. That's for sure.
Well, Brighton and Arsenal have got their padded seats. I've experienced those. That does actually add to it a little bit, but I just hate that they exist.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be watching football in a padded seat.
It's not needed.
No, the East Stand is particularly uncomfortable. I will say that. And also something else you haven't experienced about the East Stand is when you're there on a nice spring or autumn afternoon, or summer really, and the sun's out, you're going to get it in your eyes, pal. So it's a fantastic reason not to sit in the East Stand.
Don't really have a choice about that. It's where our season ticket is. But that's fine. That's fine. I'll be looking forward to going to more games as and when I can. So look, I mean, we briefly touched upon who should not be named. But there, plenty of reasons to be cheerful at the moment. Obviously, the form is fantastic, and I've spoken to you in detail before about Southend, and I feel already your mood is lifting about the club. So yeah, how are you feeling about the next sort of the next venture and the next era for Southend?
Yeah, the last just months and months really. I feel like I have been personally worn down. I don't feel like whilst I've been a massive fan of Southend all my life, to the point that I know a lot of people don't, if they think of me, they only think of Southend, that type of guy. And the last, I used to be home and away in my 20s, but certainly, having two kids puts the brakes on a little bit with how dedicated you can be. But it still takes up an awful lot of my emotion, and I do feel like I've been on the periphery a little bit of the action towards what's been happening over the last few months. But I've followed everything, and also particularly coming into this calendar year, it's worn me down to a point where I think I've been kind of numb to things a little bit. So I spent quite a large part of this summer, probably wrongly, thinking, what's the, I don't know what the point is. I actually thought we were gonna go, and I feel like I was inadvertently mentally preparing myself for nothing. And I wasn't feeling particularly positive. And what really hurt over the summer was, as I've discussed with one or two people before, is when you do have kids, you start to live or see things through their eyes a little bit. And so for that reason, I switched off quite a lot, because I didn't want to see it through my eldest size, who is now going to games a little bit and really enjoys it, and I didn't want to have to turn around and tell her we might not have a club anymore. So I think I was just gradually worn down to a level of apathy, really. And now, and I've had a lot of attention, as we'll talk about in a minute, back onto what I've been doing with the band over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's kind of coincided with the takeover, being 90% over the line. It actually happened and was announced during some days of rehearsals for our tour that we've just finished. And my head was all over the place. So I think if you'd have asked me in July where we're headed, I was trying to show a bit of positivity, but actually deep down I was thinking this could get really, really bad for me and all my friends and everything that we know. But when I found the news out, I cried in front of people that don't really have that affinity. It was very strange. And then I spent the next 2 weeks trying to almost like bottling it up, because I didn't want them to know how sad I am, right? And how much it really means to me, and how much this takeover has changed my emotions a lot. A lot. And I haven't been the guy outside Ron's house on multiple occasions getting people to bib their horn. I haven't gone on the marches. Well, I would have done if I was around, but I just couldn't make that day. I haven't been around the table with all the wonderful members of the Shrimpers Trust and everybody else that has really helped pull this together. I've been heavily engulfed in WhatsApp messages. But some of the people that have put so much into this, and I'm aware that too many cooks can spoil it all, and there are only a certain amount of people that needed to be around that table, but some of the people that have been around that table have been absolutely fantastic and should be remembered, just like the current squad are. But yeah, my emotions, without really wanting to shout it on the rooftops, have just taken a wild turn, basically.
That's beautiful. I think that really sums up kind of from everyone I've spoken to as well, kind of that's people have gone through waves and whether it's bottling it up or whether it's being realistic or whether it's being pessimistic, there's been so many different ways of dealing with this. And I think that new sense of kind of relief or hope, I guess, that things are or hopefully are about to change. Brilliantly summed up there. But I think it's good to dwell on it. Sorry, it's exciting to kind of think about the future, but I also want to talk about a bit more about your previous experience. Kind of for me as a non-Southend fan, and I'm a football fan generally. I'm a Nottingham Forest fan who never gets to go to Nottingham Forest because I live in Essex. I recently moved to Leigh-on-Sea. I've recently moved to the area in the last couple of years. So for me, I just love sport. I love going to football matches. Going to Roots Hall for the first time the other day was a real experience for me. I love going to new grounds. It's an incredible place, and I could sort of feel the history within, but also feel that it had been neglected and had, not kind of loved in the way it should be for many years. Can you explain to me? No, you know me a bit, but can you explain to me from your point of view what it is to be a Southend fan?
And I'm slightly different to a lot of people in that I didn't grow up in Southend. So I grew up in Billericay, which is, as almost everybody listening to this will know, is a good half an hour at least away on a match day, more. I went to school out of the area. I was the only, I can't remember more than 2 other Southend fans, maybe 3 in my entire senior school, which is now the biggest employer in Brentwood. So it gives you an impression of how big it is. And 2 of those I didn't know about until after school. I kind of flew the flag on my own. I supported geographically my local club. My dad was very proud of that. I remember him lecturing kids in getting changed in swimming lessons that he was taking me to, who were talking about Liverpool and Manchester United and Arsenal and what have you. I've come from a very, my background is to be very proud of your local team. And by local team, I watched Billericay quite a lot, but Southend was the first team I watched. So I guess, my local football league team. And spent an awful long time being patronised by top level fans, particularly West Ham ones. And also, what's been great about watching Southend is that we have been big enough to have done some really special things. League promotions. Everyone will talk about beating Manchester United in the League Cup in the noughties. Privileged to have been there for all promotions and that evening. But we've also, we were also punching above our weight in that level. At that level, we always were. And now, obviously, we find ourselves, in the 5th tier. There aren't many clubs that span that. But we've had the size of club. I've experienced really low crowds at Roots Hall. I've experienced sellouts. But over my period of watching Southend, because of the size of our club and that it will never be an Arsenal or a Manchester United, it's a community whether I live there or not. So it's great to know that I can go to a game, home or away, without arranging to meet anybody, and I can easily come into contact with a whole number of people, some of which I don't even know their name. We can say hello. I know their face. We go back decades without really knowing anything about each other than we have this shared experience and love of our club. And that's what's made the whole of the last 3 or 4 years so great in a weird way, and it's brought so many of us together where you realise it's not just me that's hurting here, it's actually all of us. And you got that sense of what could be lost through it all.
So away days, Boreham Wood, how was it?
Without meaning to make this about the kids all the time, it was my eldest's first away game.
Nice.
I think I tweeted about this yesterday, that my first away game was at the Dell in 95, January 95. It was a FA Cup time. We were all in there super early. It was packed. Atmosphere was great. I drew SUFC on my knuckles in biro, which didn't come off for days. I went down with my dad, and we went 1-0 down in 13 seconds. And we lost 2-0. So I told Amber this on the way to the game yesterday, and I think that was her expectation. So it's better.
Did you hand her a biro?
No, knowing how long it took me to get it off my hands, then I wasn't going to do that to her. She did wear my first ever Southend shirt that I was given when I was 8 there.
Oh, I love that. That's good.
It now fits her, and I tell you what, it's in fantastic nick.
Who's the sponsor?
Furholm. If this were a video thing, then I would hold it up. But I've got it as my phone case.
Furholm. Who are Furholm? What do they do?
They used to be a building firm. I think. We had some fantastic kits. Anyway, we came up against a side I hate playing, and I initially have seen a number of times playing Billericay. It's one of these it's one of these clubs with all due respect, because I'm used to seeing them play Billericay, I can't believe they're in our league. But they are, and they've proved difficult enough that they've become almost like a little bogey team over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
which is, I think it's really got to some of us. So I went there last year. It was a bit of a turgid 1-0 loss with a Jack Bridge penalty miss. So it was nice for him to come back yesterday and actually dispatch a penalty.
Yeah, that is satisfying.
But they're Bournemouth. Luke Garrard at Bournemouth has just got them really well organised. They stopped us playing, which is they're one of the few teams this season that has managed to do that. We always feel like this season as some of the best football I've ever seen us play, whatever level. To be honest, this season we've played some excellent stuff. Found space. Often look like we've got an extra man. Always somebody in the midfield having an excellent game. And then, yesterday I think we just felt a bit. We weren't particularly flat, but they just knew how to stop us playing. So Jack Bridge saw much less of the ball, and there wasn't really much compensation for that either. So we've had a few games this season where Jack Bridge has not seen much of the ball, but as a result, other people have. But no, they were fairly effective and a bit ugly in going about it. But it was a pretty. I think we were all quite grateful for the point in the end. Nick Hayes made 2 or 3 fantastic saves. One late on that I thought had gone in. So a point's good in the grand scheme of things. They're not an easy team. But so Anne was happy. She had a great time. She was disappointed when I told her there were only 2 minutes left, so she obviously didn't want to go home.
Wow, that's amazing.
And she would like to go to another away game.
Right. Thank you very much, Piers. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great.
Speak soon. We will hopefully have you as a reporter at some games in the future.
That would be excellent. No problem.
There we have it. Another brilliant episode of Shrimperscast with 2 guest interviews, very action-packed. Big thanks to Will for joining me today.
Stepped up to the mark.
Stepped up to the mark, stepped up to the mic, came off the bench, banged a few goals in for us. Thank you, Will. Paul will be back next week, so we'll get Paul on the show. And big thanks to everyone listening. Don't forget, Shrimperscast t-shirts available for pre-order for delivery in early December. The perfect Christmas present for Shrimperscast fans. If you haven't pre-ordered yours yet, get on to our website shop.shrimperscast.com. There's a 10% off voucher with a code that's just on the webpage there. You pop that in and you get 10% off. And the best thing of all is that 10% of net proceeds from all sales of the t-shirts will be donated to the Shrimpers Trust. Show a bit of love to the podcast, show a bit of love to the Trust, get yourself a t-shirt. Thanks for listening again, guys, and we'll see you next week. Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.